Hello everybody, another Tuesday night training. Hey, we're going to kick it off on the topic of changing past history or dealing with feelings like anxiety or anger, something that sticks with us that we've had ever since we were little and it keeps reoccurring. And even if you're dealing with your teens, this could have something that they could have been struggling with for years. So first thing I want to do is think about a feeling that precedes either a panic or an anxiety in you, and it could be a loud noise. Like for me, growing up in an alcoholic home, if I hear a bottle crash or something like that, I'm like automatically triggered back to when my folks were fighting. And every one of us has these anchors or these triggers that happen, and then something fires off inside of us, and it is a chain reaction all the way back to when we originally installed the trauma or the fear. So for me, in this exercise, without having somebody here to really demonstrate it for you, I'm going to use you. So I want you to kind of notice in yourself a particular feeling that you're not really comfortable with in your body, that if you hear a loud noise or if somebody criticizes you, you fall apart, or any little thing. It could be any little thing. It doesn't have to be the big giant thing that you need the most work on, but it could be. But just pick something, and for the discussion tonight, we're going to just talk about anxiety or panic. So there's a button that happens, and all of a sudden you get a little jerky. What I want you to do now is, in tracing this, it's not always easy to say, oh, it started here when I was 9 or started when I was 14. A lot of times it takes what we call like a transdarvational search, or because we code our feelings kinesthetically, so you're going to have a feeling that'll take you back to where it started. A lot of times with the work I do, I'll use anchors to hold onto that button. So it may sound cruel, but I might say to somebody, so you really get triggered easily, and then you have anxiety, and then I'll say, let's try to access that feeling, and I might even set off a trigger. And then when I do, I'll anchor it. I might by anchoring, I might grab their hand or their knee and just press. And now I'm literally got the bad feeling held on. And I'll ask them. I'll say, close your eyes, just relax, and go back to and notice where this feeling originated. And if it was a panic, you might have panic 10 times a day, or you might have it once a week. And as you do the transdarvational search, as you go back in time, you'll find the very first time it started, or you'll find the most intense time. Either one will do for the exercise. If you can find the most intense time, that's great. If you find the very first time where it originated, that's great. So we kind of go back in our memory and we find out where this happened, and the very first time or the most intense time. Then I'll release the button, because who wants to feel that panic all the time? I'll release the button and have them shake it off, and then I will actually get them to kind of look at their timeline from an observer standpoint. So I would say, look, you had this panic here last week. You had a panic attack, and then it happened in the 10th grade, the 8th grade, the 7th grade, the 1st grade, and that's where it kind of originated. And I'll get that young person or parent to look at themselves in that very first grade where it originated. And I'll say this: what did that? First, I'll say notice the younger you did the best they could with the resources they had. But what other resources did they need that they didn't have? Well, they might have known. They need to know that so and so was going to be their friend later on in life, or they weren't going to get teased past the 2nd grade, or whatever made them come unglued back then. They did the best they could, but it also installed a panic button or an anxiety button. And so we get them to notice that from an observer, and then we find out, what did the little you need to know? Well, needed to know that I could talk about it, needed to know that I have support, that I'm going to get stronger and bigger, and pretty soon I'll be bigger than that guy or that gal that teased me, or whatever resources they needed to know. And then this is the big turning point on how you completely change that past history. Is you get them to notice a time, anytime on their timeline where they had all those resources, they had very good support, they believed in their physical and verbal communication skills, they felt totally confident, and then we do another anchor. We hold that very good, strong button, and we ask them to then really go back to the younger time, and if you had all these resources, how would that have changed how you dealt with that anxiety or that panic? And then most of us will notice that, hey, with that positive, all the resources we needed, it was a piece of cake in dealing with that. It changes how we neurologically link that. And then we walk the timeline. We walk up to the 3rd grade, the 5th grade, the 7th grade, after graduation, then in adulthood, all the way to present, with the resource button on how you overcame all those divots and all those marked out episodes you had with the panic. Then I release that button, we get off the timeline, we come back, and then we kind of watch the original thing over again to see if the panic's still there, see if the button's still there. 9 out of 10 times that will do it. That will totally transform our link, our neurological link to all that damage, and improve our resources when the button's pushed. Now, one thing I do is very helpful, and you could try this out yourself. As an adult, like let's say I had a problem with panic and I used to get really nervous, and it started in the 4th grade or started in the 3rd grade. I can go back right now as a coach, right now on my timeline, and I can say to the younger me, I can coach him. I can say, listen, you're going to be okay. Pretty soon you're going to have more tools in your toolbox, and you're going to be helping other kids do, through these times. How does that change the younger you? So sometimes just taking your skill set now and stepping on that and walking through your timeline with your younger you really undoes a lot of damage, because it proves to the younger part of you that, hey, I did accomplish it. I did make it. So it's a little bit of changing past history, and that's our teaser on the anxiety, some of the tools that we're going to use. But I wanted to kind of bring you into that today. And then finally, we're gonna cover trauma next, and how to really, because we're seeing a lot of it with our veterans with the post-traumatic stress syndrome. But veterans have children, and children that grow up in households where parents have trauma issues are now involved in trauma issues. So I'm going to give you some tools on that. And so we'll deal with some trauma and some phobia stuff. And looking forward to these Tuesday nights with you. And I hope you enjoyed this one on changing past history.